Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jeff Rains coming to you again with Foundation of Civilization. And it has been another exciting week, and unfortunately, not in a good way for a lot of people. I remember hearing a Chinese proverb that says that wise men learn from their mistakes, wiser men learn from others' mistakes. I hope that you guys are watching some of the mistakes that are being made around the world, and you're learning from it, learning to do something else. To get started with the markets, the oil, West Texas Intermediate crude was up to 76.57. Brent crude was up to 79.76. The OPEC basket was up to 76.93. Baltic Dry Goods Exchange was was up to 1,049. Gold was up to 26.8934. Silver was also up to $30.41. Conflict tracker. Wars continue just as they were before in Ukraine versus Russia. Israel. Uh, it's actually kind of settled a little bit in Israel and Gaza. In Lebanon, I think people are kind of on a hold right now between until the U.S. president gets into office and people kind of see how things are going to unfold there. uh, Yemen and with the Houthi rebels struggling over the Red Sea, causing conflict over the Red Sea, continue. And the undercurrents of war with Iran, backed by Russia, and the West, uh, associated with Israel and the United States, they all continue. China, I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Civil wars continue in Sudan, and Myanmar. All the disputes. The only real thing that I want to bring up about as far as disputes go is that over the past few weeks, Pakistan and Afghanistan have started disputes over a militant group, over how to handle a militant group. That portends that problems are going to continue between the two countries. Instability continues in various places: Libya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Central America's Northern Triangle. Uh, as far as military deployments go, the USS America continues to remain in Sasebo, Japan, and the USS George Washington is in Yokosuka, Japan. The USS Carl Vinson arrived uh, or is conducting routine operations in the South China Sea after departing Port Klang, Malaysia. The USS Abraham, at last report, was in its home port of San Diego, California. The USS Harry Truman is conducting operations in the Red Sea, continues to conduct operations in the Red Sea. Uh, no word, no, no word of any change uh, on the actually just no word on the USS Ronald Reagan, the USS Tripoli, the Wasp, the Gerald R. Ford, and the Iwo Jima. The last report we had for the USS George H.W. Bush was that it was in its home port of Norfolk, Virginia. Markets in Europe. DAX was up this week to 20,000, 214.79. The FTSE was up to 8,248.49. CAC 40 was up 74.31 to zero point zero 0.04. And the IBEX was up to 11,720.90. An interesting thing happened this past week in Austria. They held elections, and what their media is calling a far right party, the Freedom Party, gained a significant amount of seats. The politicians attempted to block the results of the election by having a far left party, a coalition party, try to form a government. These efforts failed, and the Austrian politicians finally gave into the election results and asked the Freedom Party to form a government. I will keep watch on that to see how things unfold there. Pressure is mounting in the EU to use legal weapons against what they call Elon Musk interference in their elections. It is unclear why they have all of a sudden decided that they want to punish Musk and have ignored other uh, business leaders, finance leaders, interference in elections and their economies, for that matter. Iran and Russia. I've reported on this before, but they hope to alter economic and political landscape with ties that they're developing through infrastructure projects and uh, and altering transportation systems. They've got huge ideas for gas lines and railways from Russia down through Iran to the Red Sea, and well, I think it'll be the that would be the Gulf of Hormuz, and out to India, which would bypass quite a few places because Russia has the problem that they don't have a warm water port. And recently, they lost their access to the Mediterranean port at Tartus. Those plans that they have are very ambitious and they face many difficulties, including economic, engineering, and political. The political instability in the region could lead to all kinds of problems stopping those projects. But if they're successful, we could see the massive shifts in economic and political alliances. They've laid the plans out there. They have the groundwork there. So we'll see what happens. See what kinds of things change. It This past week, Russian leaders reiterated that they do not believe that the incoming U.S. president will be allowed to deliver a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. They have between not being certain that his plans are going to pan out, but they've also expressed concerns that the rest of Washington D.C. is going to stand up opposed to his plans. There's a lot of money that is to be made by the military industrial complex. And they've even expressed concern, Russian leaders have expressed concern over the incoming president's safety if he tries to end the Ukraine war. Ukrainian forces continue to fight in the Kursk region. Several battles have occurred, but no word on the results or any casualties. In Asia, the markets, the Nikkei was down this week. Actually, all of the indexes were down this week to 39,190.40. The SSE index was down to 3,168.52. Hang Seng index was down 19,064.29. The BSE Sansex was down to 77,378.79 or 91. And the Nifty 50 was down to 23,440. Just, yeah, 23,440. Rumors are swirling. I heard some rumors this past week by people in the know that Shanghai has lost millions of residents. And this goes into Chinese economy, which I'll talk about in a moment here, a little bit more in a moment. Hmm. Reporters have noted that some of the locations in Shanghai are rather empty, but the number of departures from the city seems to be rather exaggerated. They're seeing businesses and I guess some residential locations that are looking kind of empty, but overall they're still conducting business. So we will keep I will keep my ear to the ground on that one and see what I think is happening. As I mentioned, China's economy is struggling, and it's actually in a very dangerous situation right now. Over the past few years, for those of you who have not heard, they've had a very serious situation in their financial situation in their housing sector. Uh, we've had a couple of companies like Evergrande and Country Garden that have gone bankrupt. Businesses, what happened is that these businesses are housing businesses, and they're building, building housing, building office structures. They took in down payments and made arrangements for monthly payments from individuals or for families for houses and apartments that would take several years to build. Over the course of the building, they mismanaged the money, and now they what's unfolding is that they either cannot finish the projects, or they're in a few in some instances they're delivering substandard products. Many people have lost significant portions of their savings. The Chinese people are very good at saving money, and they're very cautious about where they put it. And they see housing as a very stable investment. It unfortunately is coming to bite them now that because the housing is a bubble in China. Uh, as people are losing money on their housing, they're not getting the apartments that they were promised. They uh, they're not paying uh, their loans, and the banks are struggling because uh, many of the people were making their monthly payments and they've stopped, and so the banking income has dropped or ceased altogether. Countries that struggle economically often take drastic measures against people and against other countries to distract their people. This problem, some of the estimates about this problem is that China's housing crisis is 3 times as large as the United States housing crisis in 2009. There was a report, and I've still got to try to get a hold of the report and review it, but it is quite it could be quite extensive. This causes us to watch 5 things in the South China Sea: the Taiwan Strait, the dispute between China and Taiwan, the Scarborough Shoal, the dispute between China and the Philippines, the Second Thomas Shoal, again another dispute between China and the Philippines, Vietnamese island building, and just the general code of conduct in the South China Sea between all of these different navies. The dispute in South Korea continues, with supporters of the president blocking police from arresting him and his replacement, who, for those of you who had not heard, the South Korean president was impeached and his successor was impeached also. In fact, becoming president of South Korea seems to be a legal nightmare, with many of the past presidents coming under investigation, some of them being jailed also. Now, between China, South Korea, and various other places, Japan has noted that they are facing the most complex security environment since World War II. Over in the Middle East, Israel is watching as things change, new things unfold, and they are preparing a new generation of spies for Mossad and Shin Bet. The French president has warned pretty much the world that Iran's nuclear program is nearing a point of no return. It has been noted that Syria's new intelligence chief, Khattab, has ties to Turkey's spy agency, and Turkey will be influencing Syria as much as they can. President of Turkey has also said that they are ready to intervene if Syria splits, which is entirely possible because the uh, s- modern day Syria is just a kind of a conglomeration of peoples. A number of airstrikes were conducted in Iraq by U.S. aircraft, F-16s, 15s, A-10s, against ISIS in that country. In Africa, 6 soldiers and 34 extremist rebels die in clashes in northeastern Nigeria. In Chad, the president's palace came under attack. Officials have claimed it was drunk youth who attacked the palace, but some question if it might have been a terrorist group, Boko Haram. The attacks follow the disputed election of the country's president, Debbie Intro, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. So please forgive me if I didn't. Militant group M23 or March 23rd, is making a push into Congo's eastern front and seizing towns in a resource-rich area on the border with Rwanda. And that has displaced 100,000 people since the beginning of the year. And like I said, it's been an exciting week. Burkina Faso is facing a challenge with a many displaced group, as I understand it, named the Fulani. There, well, there's a lot that's going on in the region, and the the new ruler of Burkina Faso is facing lots of challenges. Militants inflicted heavy losses on Benin's armed forces in an attack in the north. In the Americas, Dow Jones average was down to 41,938.45. The S&P was down to 5827.04, and the Nasdaq was also down to 19,161.63. And I found this interesting because it's kind of a general trajectory of society and a move away from what many are calling feminized Protestant churches. Many are seeking a more masculine traditional worship service. Some of them are turning to the Orthodox Christian Church. This is also interesting because there are quite a few women, a significant portion of the female population, that are turning even more radical, more feminized, against traditional female roles. In Canada, the prime minister resigned. I get the sense that there's something else behind this. I think he recognizes that changes are coming in the country, in the world, and he's kind of on the way out, and so he kind of protecting his legacy. He's opened up the opportunity for someone else to take charge and either be at the helm when trouble strikes, or possibly direct their country and send their country in a new direction. In Mexico, the municipality of Uriria in Guanajuato, 10 gunmen were killed and 3 police officers were injured in a shootout with security forces amid cartel turf battles in Mexico. The FBI, during its investigation of the New Orleans attack, has noted that the attacker visited the city twice to conduct surveillance. Now, there's some things that are occurring right now with the president-elect of the United States. It is curious that he has not ventured outside of his home in South Florida, except for very limited circumstances like the former President Carter's funeral. This is likely because of the threats to his life by many groups, including Iran, and his lack of trust in the Secret Service and the FBI. If you remember, there were 2 attempts on his life, and there were whistleblowers that came out and stated that there were 5 active groups that were threatening to assassinate him. 2 of those groups were Iranian. I I sense that he doesn't want to leave his residence until he can shake things up in these organizations and get people that he trusts in those positions. The incoming president also sent a stern warning to countries in the Middle East. He told Hamas that hostages held in Gaza must be released or there would be consequences, very serious consequences. This past week, the incoming president also made some wild claims about changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico and making Canada a new state and taking control of Greenland, uh, taking it under U.S. administration from its current administrator, Denmark. He has suggested that the U.S. could purchase or coerce Denmark into the transfer. Now, most comments by politicians I write off as boasting, and little will come of it. That's that's how I see changing the name of Gulf of Mexico and making Canada a state or states under the United States. However, annexing Greenland is a rather different matter. I was able to dig up a 5-year old article from NPR outlining the tremendous resources under the ice in Greenland. Future industrial technology development all requires rare earth metals that are in the continent there, or excuse me, in the island of Greenland. Currently, in the markets, China controls a huge percentage of the rare earth metals, and the growing tensions between China, the West, and especially the United States are threatening the delivery of the resources. In fact, China has cut off some of these resources. So it actually makes sense that the president would try to align the those resources under U.S. Jurisdiction. Now, this does not necessarily mean that the U.S. will officially take over Greenland. It could also mean that we build a better deals with Denmark and allow U.S. companies to move in there, U.S. mining companies to move in there. Now, as the incoming administration's opponents discredit his ideas, mostly due to their hate, they're ignoring China's diplomatic efforts to bring Denmark into their sphere of influence. The other reason that his opponents are opposing these suggestions have a lot to do with payoffs from the Chinese Communist Party. A lot of these people have deals that we don't quite recognize, don't understand yet, and that they've been able to hide. But I have a feeling that things are going to come out in the near future that we'll come to understand those financial deals in very soon. California experienced some of the worst fires that they have ever seen in Hollywood and Palisades. Poor forest management, planting of a eucalyptus tree, laid the foundation for this dangerous situation. Poor water management, in an effort to protect an endangered fish, eliminated the availability of primary firefighting material. Politicians and bureaucrats have mismanaged the water in California. LA paid a bureaucrat $750,000 to ensure water was in the hydrants, and she failed. In fact, she gets paid uh, twice as much as anybody else in the city, and the fire hydrants were dry. Now, she's not the only one causing mismanagement. Water is normally brought via aqueduct from the north of the state to the south. Lately, the water has been diverted directly to the ocean to address other environmental concerns. Forest areas and the neighborhoods were a tinderbox, and one spark erupted into a very large flame. Not only were firefighting efforts hampered by a lack of water, but LA sent firefighting equipment to Ukraine. Very kind of them, but whenever they needed it, it wasn't there, wasn't available for them. Several water dropping planes from Canada were helping fight these fires until one was struck by a drone, damaging it and grounding it. I should say that we applaud the effort of the Canadians to help put out the fires in Canada. As of the last report that I heard, 10 people were officially counted as dead. I'm certain that that count is going to go higher, much, much higher. And thousands of homes have been burned. Many of these homes were in some of the most expensive areas in the United States. So all of the wealth that these people had did not protect them from the fires. It's also been noted that looters are invading some of the homes and abandoned neighborhoods, and of course, police are trying to stop them. While these fires are ongoing, arsonists are taking advantage of the situation and igniting additional fires. The source points, some people are able to track the source points and they note that they are right next to highways, which makes it easy access and egress. So they can start the fire and get out of there very quickly. It's unclear how many of these fires are accidental and how many are intentional. I would not doubt that many of these fires have been started intentionally, and I have to question the some of our recent immigrants and their involvement. I am certain that the enemies of the United States would be happy to cause additional damage uh, while chaos is erupting. At least one person has been arrested by for arson. Is described as a homeless man in his 30s. He was arrested by citizens and held by police. Now, many people, and I have bad. Real, this is really bad news for people in the area. I should also note that insurance in the state very highly regulated and pretty much state dominated. They've been pulling out for years, and they've been increasing the cost of conducting business, and for various reasons. And fraud is right there in the mix. Many people believe they're just going to rebuild their homes. Some of these the stars and actors that were in the Hollywood or Palisades, they probably have the money, but they didn't have insurance. A lot of them didn't have any insurance on their homes. They're going to run into another problem that recent regulations have made it a very long and expensive process just to get the authorization to build the house, to get the permitting. Several years ago, actress Suzanne Summers from Three's Company back in the 70s, she lost her house to a fire. And she spent 4 years trying to get authorization and finally gave up and moved to another state. This these fires highlight a problem that we have in our country, actually kind of in our world. Elections have consequences, and we must be much more discriminating of our political leaders. Our politicians are less about public administration, and they are much more about theatrical performances and presentation. There are things going on in the background that we know nothing about. Sometimes it is to save the politicians a difficult argument to explain to the public what's happening. Sometimes it is so that those politicians and their friends can take advantage of the general populace. Our lack of attention is allowing seriously flawed individuals to fail us when things are critical. We cannot let our personal feelings about people guide our decisions any longer. At least 10 people are dead. Thousands are homeless. Southern California will never be the same. I encourage you to educate yourself, wake up, realize what's happening, and see that we have to make changes so that we can address the issues that are coming forward in the world today. I hope that you guys are watching, preparing, and you realize you're getting ready for these problems. And please uh, get with your family. I Over the holidays between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I was able to get out and see my children and now grandchildren, and it was a very exciting time for me. I had a great time. Uh, I hope that you guys are getting together with your families and you are seeing the great things unfold. Please like, share, and subscribe. I enjoy doing this, but it does take some time and effort, and I need your help. Thank you very much. Again, this is Jeff Rains signing off with Foundation of Civilization. Have a great week.